Brad Newcombe, and you are watching Pressure Point. With business, the bottom line is always profit. Well, not always. Imagine a world where the bottom line is profit, but also concern for the environment, the community, social well-being, how products are made, and how we treat our employees. Well, my guests are thinking about that all the time, and I'd like to introduce them to you. Nancy Bradshaw, who is an entrepreneur and the owner of Hope Unlimited,
Right.
which is a retail gift business which is socially responsible, and you're also a co-founder of Canadian Business for Social Responsibility. Also like to welcome Nina Winham, who provides consulting to businesses who want to develop socially responsible practices, and you work, Nina, at the Citizens Bank of Canada in marketing and corporate responsibility. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
And later on we will be looking at some products and so on that are considered to be socially responsible. I'd like to start on a personal note, is with each of you. How did you get motivated and concerned? I mean, you're in a bank and you're in a business, so how did you get concerned about this social responsibility stuff?
Well, I guess for me, I worked as a journalist for a lot of years, and you see a lot of things when you work as a reporter, and just you realize the inequities that are in our society, and you see things where you wish you could help to make change. But you also, one of the things that you see as you do reporting is how powerful business is. And it's not the only powerful influence in society, but we live in a capitalist society, we live in a society that's very heavily consumer oriented, and so business has a lot of power. And a couple years ago I went back to school and studied an MBA and decided I was going to do more than just journalism. And I really thought about things like the amount of time and effort that go into producing new products that we put on our shelves, but I think people know in their heart of hearts we don't need, and we really could live without. And just the amount of energy and waste and endeavor that is poured into things that aren't really making any bigger contribution than to satisfy that sort of urge to buy something. So for me, I think it started there, and then as I started working at Citizens Bank, I was lucky to start to, actually it was before that, when I was doing my internship for the MBA, I started to be able to learn about the fact that there actually are people like Nancy who have been working in this field for a number of years, and who, and that there's a lot of discussion going on among some business leaders about how to make business more community aware and more socially responsible.
Nancy, what was there something that motivated you?
Yeah, I would say that I think I'm pretty similar to a lot of people who, I grew up, I always had a big heart, I got involved with a lot of charity work, and I love trying to make a difference. So I think as I got older, at home and in the evenings I'd be doing things that made a difference in the world. In the daytime I'd be working in very mainstream corporate business world. And what I found is I thought, and I was making a lot of money at a very young age. So I was probably 28 years old, earning over $100,000 a year. And I think what I came to is I thought, I'm using all my intellectual ability and all my energy and all my excitement around business that helps business become more efficient and does employ people. But it doesn't look at how we're treating our communities and all the questions that really I think about in the evenings. So I came to the conclusion I want to combine my love of business and my excitement for, how can I think of a creative strategy? How can we get this team working well together? How can we get this project done really well? With my interest for all the neat things happening in the community, and how can I kind of blend them? And so that's why I started Hope Unlimited.
Which is, and so explain Hope Unlimited. And we've got some things here.
Okay.
There's some really great things here. So we want to do look. It's it's like going shopping.
Okay. Well, with Hope Unlimited, it was basically it's a retail store with a mandate. I guess the Body Shop inspired me.
Okay.
Okay. So what Anita Roddick did was she said, I want to have a business that makes a difference in the world.
Right.
So she has a lot of social campaigns throughout her stores. And I researched that and I thought, I want to go one step further. I want to do that, and I want to have social campaigns in my store. I also want to screen all my products, so I know they're all socially friendly.
Now, when you say socially friendly, what's that mean?
Well, when you go to a store to buy, say, a wine glass,
Right.
right?
Okay, let's just take this wine glass here.
Okay.
This is sort of our show and tell.
Right. So you're going to the store and you want to buy a wedding gift for someone. Okay.
Okay.
So you want to make sure. I think one thing has to be given. I think you have to always make sure the price has got to be competitive, right? So you want to spend a certain dollar amount.
Right. Okay.
So you're not going to pay $200 for that glass.
And the quality is good.
Yeah, the quality's got to be great. So the price and the quality have to be high.
Right. Okay.
Okay, for a
It has
gift.
to look good.
Right.
Yeah.
So within that box, right, that's kind of what a lot of consumers think about. What social consumers think about, and what you might think about on some days, is where is this product made? Am I adding more jobs? Everyone knows our, job prospects are,
Right.
Everyone cares about jobs. So are you adding more jobs to the local economy? Okay, with that wine glass. Second thing you can ask is, are the employees who work in that environment, are they being paid, the bare minimum wage, like $7 an hour, which doesn't really add a lot to our communities, or are they being paid really well? So is the wealth in that business being shared? The third question you can ask yourself is, if it's not made in Canada, where is it made? Is it made in India or China? And if it's made there, was prison labor used or was child labor used? And do you I'm not saying you have to support or not support it, I'm just saying, what is your values? Do you care about those kinds of things?
Okay, but now, and a question to both of you. When did you start asking those kind of questions when you went shopping? Because I don't think a lot of shoppers do.
I think you start asking them bit by bit as you learn about the issues, and I think most people who are thinking about these issues aren't, I wouldn't paint any of us as sort of high and mighty, models of perfection. We live in a society where there's all sorts of neat stuff around, and a lot of it's fairly inexpensive, and you can buy a variety of things. But if you think about the fact that when you spend $1, you're sending a signal. You're saying, I'm willing to take this product at this price, and Nancy just said the sort of, this package, this this quality at this price, and that's how business develops, and it's how our society develops. Because if a company has a great product but they overprice it, people won't buy it. Or if it's really awful quality and it falls apart, sooner or later people learn and they don't come back for another one. So if you continually send signals with your dollar that you really don't care if that was made with a 6-year-old. If that you really don't care that somebody who is in a prison was forced to make that product, then that's what you're voting for. Every time you lay $1 down, you're placing a vote. And I'm not saying that I do that every time. I'm not saying that. No. And a lot of times, even if you try,
or that we don't know.
You can't get the information.
We can give you a couple of examples that I've had in my life,
sure.
And after seeing some shows on child labor, for instance, and when I worked at UBC, they always have these fabulous sort of fairs with all kinds of things, and there were watches and things that I would buy. They were $10, $20 and stuff like that. And then I saw a show that they could be made in Thailand or India, with child labor, and it felt awful. And I was in another store one time where they had some of these displays and booths, and I wanted to find out. I just thought it was my mission to find out if anybody here in this, it was a fairly big store. I won't name it, I guess. But I went everywhere. I even had the manager called. And they could not give me the information, nor were they very receptive to my questions.
I think that's the most important part, though, is I think that's where as an owner of a business, we get someone asked the same question 3 times, we consider that the beginning of a trend. So you may think that your one question, it's kind of uncomfortable to ask because people are running around, you don't want to cause a scene.
Or they're rolling their eyes.
Yeah, they're rolling their eyes.
I was causing a bit of commotion,
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
I was in an irritated mood anyways,
But when 3 people ask, like as a retailer, any retailers, and this isn't just socially conscious retailers, when 2 or 3 people ask, they consider it significant, and they'll actually start finding out that information for themselves. I was out buying running shoes, and I couldn't find a pair where I was comfortable where it was made. And I had the same problems. I was trying to buy pants, those rain pants, and the staff got quite upset themselves because they go, "Well, I obviously don't know. I'm going to find this out." So I think what happens is some people kind of get their defenses up, but most people in this day and age kind of go, maybe we should know. When I was at the Gap, I mentioned to you earlier, Banana Republic, I was in shopping at Christmas time. And they said, "Thank you for asking. We've had to change a lot of our practices because I guess in the last 4 years they were one of the companies that had to change their practices, and they're quite proud of it now."
Well, see, the same thing happened to me at Christmas time at Eaton's. I was looking, and I was doing some clothing shopping, and I looked, and everything was made in. And not that there's anything wrong, I guess. I don't know, but it was just I had this feeling, you know, it was India and China, and I don't know, it was one of those days when I think I felt a little more social conscious, because some days all I want is a bargain. Some days I don't even look, to be honest. And that's what I want to talk about too, is how do we change? Like, where does that change come from? But I talked to the clerk, and she was very sympathetic, and she said, oh, I know, I feel the same way. You know, I feel bad, but she says, this is all we have.
I think there's two things that inspire change, and I'll let you share yours, but the two things I think is, one comes from inspiration, and I comes from a more pure place, and I like to be motivated by inspiration. And unfortunately, sometimes I get motivated by not wanting to create things. So for the negative side, right, when you read Jan Wong's book, Red China Blues, she's got a chapter in there that talks about how many people in China are being held without trial. So she said that, and when the foreign ministers announced that our prisons are our biggest secret. And she was actually behind, because she's Chinese Canadian, and she speaks the language that was the dialect in that area. She was able to get behind and see the kind of, very, very cruel treatments to prisoners who didn't even been convicted, and they're being used for labor that's made, for regular products that we can buy over here. Now, it doesn't mean all of China is bad. It just means you should just check out what factory it's from to see what's happening in that factory before you actually buy it. And companies who distribute products could easily find that information out. It's not that hard to find out. So the negative side, that's a negative motivation. So sort of thinking about when you buy something and you don't know where it's made, that's what you could be contributing to. So if that's kind of the yucky one. I think the positive side is kind of interesting, and that is the side of it's a bestseller out right now by Carolyn Myss, the Anatomy of the Spirit, and she talks about when people. This is one common theory is when you die, you actually see all your decisions in life.
Right.
And one of the minuter decisions, and every little minute decision, is buying a dress, right? And seeing the path, the karma that you have created through every decision you make. So if you decide to buy a dress, have you supported a local artist, or have you supported someone in a developing country, or have you actually contributed to their misery? And so I think the karmic implications of things that you do.
If we take that, though, as Canadians in North America, if we take that as all of us as Canadians and as North Americans, who, with a very tiny population, and there are over 5 billion people in the world, all of our karma's bad, isn't it?
But see, that's if you were asking earlier, how do you get started and what do you do?
How do you change? Yeah.
I think the most important thing to do to get started is not to be overwhelmed. And I think we all do that to ourselves all the time. It's like, oh my God, there are so many problems. I see pollution, and I see, children not having enough to eat, and I see, diseases and businesses that aren't doing things right, and I can't do anything about it. So, so I'll walk around.
So we just hunker down and look for a bargain.
Yeah, well, and or
then
we
want to go bargain shopping.
So don't feel like everything you do today has to be perfect.
Right.
But why not think, when I buy a new, whole outfit, that's a fairly big purchase. So maybe this one time, I'm going to really check it out. I'm going to make this one time my first step, and I'm just going to ask some questions, going to look around, going to educate myself. Like I've been in stores, like you mentioned, but it wasn't the same one, but I've been in a big name brand store that does lots of promotion about how cool and funky their clothes are. Absolutely nothing there is made in North America. It's all made in Asian countries. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but I wonder if they could tell me anything about the standards of labor that they're using.
And child labor and all those kinds of women.
Child labor, sweatshops, whether workers get breaks, whether workers are supported with opportunities for health care or things like that, whether they're paid a sufficient wage, whether they're paid enough wage to feed their family and have a little bit left over. I'm not talking about North American dollars, I'm talking about enough money in their country. Right. So try asking a few questions. So don't overwhelm yourself by feeling like every single ballpoint pen that you buy has to be perfect.
And then I'm also cynical in the sense that I've also, and this is where your group, the Canadian Business for Social Responsibility, is helpful, because I get cynical that some of the places that even say that it's organic food or that it's socially responsible, I think, well, I wonder if that's just their marketing ploy to me and to people that might want to sort of feel a little better about what you buy.
You know what I think about that? Because I've thought about this when it comes to toilet paper. Okay. Talking about a good basic product.
Okay, yeah. And that everyone uses.
Everybody uses it. And, when there first was this move to have environmentally sensitive products, all of a sudden there was, green toilet paper. It was, it was made out of recycled paper. And I thought, Now, I think all toilet paper's always been made out of recycled paper. You know,
Right.
I mean, come on. It's, you know, this is not the highest of quality of paper products. And it cost a little bit more to get the one that was labeled recycled.
Right.
But again, I thought, well, I'm voting with my dollar though. So do I mind if a few cents of my dollar goes to the vote? So what I'm doing is I am reinforcing to that person who decided to sort of float the trial balloon, to put that product out there and to say, does anybody care about this? I'm saying, yeah, I care. So I'll buy this product today, but I want you to go further tomorrow. And I'm now watching what you're giving me. So I think you do. I think it's very fair to say, is this just marketing hype? And I think one element of socially responsible business is accountability and transparency. So, and this is when you get into more fundamental level of socially responsible business, which is whether or not a company is reporting on its social performance. And that means doing social reports and social auditing. There's a whole field about that where you actually measure your impact on society in the same way that you measure your financial performance.
So how do I find out about this information, and
We
where
actually-
is
we
it
actually
published?
Call them up and
So-
ask.
Yeah, we actually did we had an independent contractor come in
Right.
and audit our multiple bottom line. So we have a format of the 7 key areas of social responsibility.
What are the 7 key areas of social responsibility?
Marketplace practices, okay,
Okay,
internal
marketplace practices, yeah.
employee, how employees are treated. I'm
Right,
just going to put it in English, okay?
Okay.
How employees are treated.
right,
International practices.
right, okay.
Okay.
So what's happening
Purchasing
in their
policies.
across when they're trading with other countries?
Yeah.
Okay.
Purchasing policy, environment treatment,
Mm-hmm.
and fiscal. You have to be financially responsible.
Okay.
So and there's quite a lot of questions within each section.
Now-
So it basically covers the gamut. But I think back to
And
your
then
question.
probably community economic development.
Yeah, yeah.
Giving back to the community.
Giving back to the
Okay. So,
community.
good. So
It kind of it covers the kind of key areas of, and it's been put together based on all the research by series principles and social screening. But I think your question comes, and I think that's a big question that comes not only in consumer buying, but also in ethical investing,
right.
right? Because that's become a bigger and bigger area.
And explain what you mean by ethical investing.
Well, I think a lot of people, when I first started to try and invest my money, I said, well, I'm doing all this to try and make a difference in the world, but I've got this RSP money. And
What's it doing?
yeah, and what's it doing? What kind of world am I creating with my RSP money?
Mm-hmm.
And my financial advisor, stockbroker, said to me, it's irresponsible to put all your money in social responsible companies.
Okay. How'd that make
Why?
you feel?
And I was just
Why?
livid. Well, because they felt like, accounting practices and the way they learn their business, just like the medical profession doesn't always love new holistic things that come out, this is kind of a new concept as you invest all your money in social responsible companies. And she hadn't dealt with that before.
So did you drop her?
Well, I work with her. And
Oh.
we actually were able to, because she was quite open to the concept, and she actually started recommending some of the things that we were investing, because the ones that we recommended did really well. And I actually now do work with a financial advisor, Deb Abbey. She's with Merrill Lynch, a mainstream organization with great research, and she's totally specialized. You lay out what your values are, because everyone's are different. Like, what's most important to you? Is community involvement most important, or is
Environment?
and what return do you want? So I like a big return, right? So I've invested in a lot of technology companies who are
Right.
socially responsible.
Right.
So I think the same issue comes in with investing as it does with consumer buying is, what do you believe, what don't you believe? And I think we have to be judge of information at the bottom line. Like, I walk in, I ask a few questions, I get a gut feel whether or not I think they're being truthful or not. And those are the kind of businesses I try and support. So
And just on
As well as accountability.
To add to the point that you were just mentioning, one thing that should be put out there is that more and more the research is showing that the companies that adopt socially responsible business practices and build it into the way they do their everyday business, they tend to perform better and they tend to last for the long term. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If your employees are fairly satisfied, there's probably less turnover. If your customers are fairly satisfied and see value for the long term and the way that you're giving back to the community, they probably will patronize you more. If you're not doing things that are likely to embarrass you or to create a legal hassle for you down the line, you probably will financially perform better in the long term. So over the long term, there's more evidence that socially responsible companies outperform. So it's not an either or. It's not like you have to be socially responsible, but you're giving up on business.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I mean, is there a cost? I mean, it looks like I think one feels that financially, personally, there would be a cost to being socially responsible. That I will have to pay more because, I mean, basically because workers are better paid, and because often if you're growing something or making something, you have to use different products, and you aren't using pesticides. You know, all those kinds of things which will increase the cost.
But how much more might you pay tomorrow?
But interesting enough, my portfolio outperformed my husband's, and he didn't have the social screens in his. And my portfolio continues to do really well. Like, I know other people who have portfolios. I said, smart investing, and having that extra screen, like Nina said, is I think that there is some interesting. The companies that are doing it are thinking a lot more long term.
Right.
So I think, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe short term, not, polluting the earth might be more successful or less costly. But you get a big lawsuit later. You're gonna get a big lawsuit later.
Right.
Right. So I mean, it's quite a long term perspective. We found that at Hope, right? If we pay the staff better than average, you're not going to have people moving around. Well,
it does give hope to the question about corporations changing, because one of the things I've often thought is that, I mean, corporations don't, because profit and the shareholders seem to want short term.
Absolutely.
And the shareholders dictate this short term interest, and the company, and I mean, you see stocks go down as soon as, I mean, it's true that there's that difficulty.
Absolutely.
So when will we get the critical mass of, it has to be a whole lot of people being converted, doesn't it?
I actually think that it's starting to happen, and I think more people like you, if you just ask 1 out of 20 days, where was this made, you're going to influence, in a year, 14 businesses, right?
Yeah.
And
maybe I can do 1 out of every 10 days. Yeah. Maybe I'll even try to double the output.
Especially if you start getting really interesting conversations out of it, or you start getting interesting answers, or you start feeling like you're making a change because you empowered that one employee to go back and within their company and say, I keep getting this question, and we should think about it. And the companies that have come under a lot of pressure, I mean, Macmillan Bloedel has decided to phase out clear cutting. That didn't come without a lot of people questioning their practices. Nike has started to raise the level of the age of the people who work in its factories overseas. And that wasn't without lots of pressure.
That's for sure.
It happens. And then,
then Michael Jordan was paid more than,
the entire workforce.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
But I really think that we have this big marketing machine coming at us all the time, and it says, see this thing, you want it. See this thing, you don't need it, but you want it.
Right.
And you're constantly being jerked around and influenced by marketing. And there are a lot of tools in marketing, because I do work in marketing, that I think can be used for the good. But the reality is, marketing is basically aimed at getting you to want something so that you'll buy it.
Whether I need it or not.
Yeah. Now, I mean, that has created a whole culture of us assuming that we have to leave our core values out of that. Or accepting that our core values are, oh, this is really cool, or I'm going to be a better person because of it. And it's okay to check your mind out of that mentality once in a while and say, no, what do I believe in?
Yeah.
What do I want? And why shouldn't I carry that into my workplace? And why should I leave that at the door?
Oh, I agree. I mean, I liked when also, like, into the store, into the workplace, like when you mentioned at the beginning that you were doing all these charitable things and had these values in the evening, but then in daytime life, in some workplaces, it feels like a real contradiction. The same thing when we go to the store. And I know that, from grape boycotts to, knowing that there's child labor, knowing that I'm getting a bargain at the expense of someone else. Mm-hmm. How do I begin to see, when I go shopping, how does it really get inside? I mean, there's always that intellectual sort of knowledge, and then there's that final something where it really does make that difference. Because I think for the two of you to be where you are, that's happened to you.
I think it's an emotional picture that you have. So I think there's a lot of when Nina was talking about successful advertising, right? What do? They create an image. So when you think of a certain brand, you get a feeling of, maybe it's a bank, a stableness, security. Or you think of some kind of food, you think of a mixed something, So I think there's some emotions attached to how they market, how companies market, and what kind of feelings you have when you hear a certain song. You might hear of a jingle and you immediately associate the company. I think if people associate objects that they buy with an emotion they want to have, so if I think I'm going to buy a new jacket, I think of how I'm going to feel in that jacket. I also think about now, how does that energy feel to me? When I look at that tag, do I feel proud or do I feel embarrassed? I actually bought a pair of runners, and I didn't do the proper screening. And I was in a rush. I just wanted a pair of runners. I bought the pair of runners, and I found out later that the company that I bought it from was not a company that I'm proud to be associated with. I put on those runners now, and this is me, right? And I've been in this business for a while, so I'm not saying everyone starts out here.
Right.
But when I put them on, I'm embarrassed to walk around in them. But then I kind of go, well, I don't want to throw them away, that's a waste, so I'd have to give them away. But I'm too embarrassed to actually wear them now. So I go, they don't make me feel good. When I buy things because they're beautiful, but I don't know where they're made, I get a different feeling from them now. And I think it's just like self-awareness. Do you choose to walk down the self-awareness path?
Yeah, that's right. I
Right?
mean,
Do you choose to open yourself up to spirituality? Do you choose to say, I believe that I can create a different kind of world by what I purchase? And I think it's a personal decision that you come to and go, do I want to start walking down that path? Because when you start walking down it, you start seeing more and more, and you actually start seeing the impact you can make.
and I suppose in a sense, once we start walking down, we don't know where it takes us, do we?
No, and I think that's also why we can get scared and turn around. So, I mean, there's an easy way around this too. You can go and shop at Hope Unlimited, or at Bridgehead, or at the, other places where someone's done the thinking for you. I mean, one of the things that Citizens Bank of Canada is doing is working towards a banking model where you won't have to worry about what your money's doing because it will all be screened.
And then we can
it's
go
working
from there.
towards that. But so then somebody else is doing the worry.
Thank you both. We're out of time, but thank you. It's been great.
You're welcome.
Talking with Nina Winham and Nancy Bradshaw, talking about being socially responsible in our business practices, in our shopping, in our daily lives. Thanks for joining us on Pressure Point. I'm Brad Newcombe.